Welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us on the call today. We have an exciting call planned for you. This is the Homes for All Renter Nation series, episode number 4, Organizing Tenant Unions to Build a Movement for Homes for All. For those that are needing Spanish interpretation, we have on the screen there for you the phone number that you're going to call into so that you can understand and participate with us. That is a dedicated line for Spanish interpretation. In the chat box, if you would, let us know that you're here and that if you are repping an organization, that would be helpful.
Hi, this is Tony Romano with Right to the City. I'm going to be helping with facilitation with Darnell, and we are going to turn it over to our language justice freedom fighters who will be interpreting the call to share a little bit about how that will work.
Buenas tardes, noches a todo mundo.
Good evening to everyone.
Mi nombre es Jen y esta es mi compañera Delia.
My name is Jen and this is my
Thank
colleague.
you. Good night.
Y juntas trabajamos con un colectivo aquí en Los Ángeles que se llama Antena Los Ángeles.
And together we work with a collective here in Los Angeles that's called Antena Los Angeles.
Antena Los Ángeles se dedica a fomentar la justicia del lenguaje.
And Antena Los Angeles is committed to moving forward language justice.
En este momento, nada más una pequeña nota, estamos haciendo interpretación consecutiva.
So at this moment, just as a side note, we're doing consecutive interpretation.
Entonces nos van a escuchar en ambos idiomas, en español e inglés.
So you will be listening to us both in English and Spanish.
Pero al final de este anuncio vamos a estar haciendo interpretación simultánea.
But at the end of this comment, we're going to be doing simultaneous interpretation.
Entonces, para las personas que quieren escuchar en inglés, usen la computadora, la línea de Zoom de la compu. Para las personas que quieran escuchar en español, van a estar usando la línea telefónica que se encuentra en la pantalla en este momento.
So folks who are going to be listening to us in English, please continue using your line through Zoom. And for those who are going to be listening in Spanish, please use the phone number line through your phone.
Bueno, como dije, Antena Los Ángeles se dedica a la justicia del lenguaje y quizás se estarán preguntando qué es la justicia del lenguaje.
So like I said, Antena Los Angeles is committed to using and moving forward language justice, and some of you may be asking yourself, so what is language justice?
La justicia del lenguaje es la idea que todo mundo tiene el derecho de hablar, de entender y de ser entendido en el idioma en que nos sentimos más cómodos.
So language justice, its main purpose is to be able to have folks to speak, listen, and be heard in the language that folks feel most comfortable in.
Y es un compromiso colectivo a crear espacios bilingües o multilingües como este espacio.
And it's a collective commitment to actually create a bilingual, or in this case also even multilingual space like this one.
Crear espacios bilingües en una llamada en línea puede ser bastante complicado y nos emociona muchísimo hacer este experimento con todos ustedes.
So to create a bilingual space online can be a bit complicated, but it's very emotional, and we're very honored that we can actually be experimenting along with you to do this.
Y Todo mundo puede participar en apoyar el espacio bilingüe.
So everyone involved can actually be part of supporting to create a bilingual space.
Una de las cosas principales que pueden hacer es, si no están hablando, usen silencio o en el teléfono o en la computadora.
So one clear thing that you can actually do is, if you are not speaking, if you can mute both on your phone and on the computer.
Otra cosa que pueden hacer es asegurar que solamente una persona hable a la vez.
Another thing that it's important that you can do is only to have one mic, only one person speaking at once.
Si hay algún problema técnico o si tienen una pregunta para las personas presentando, por favor usen el casillero de chat.
If there's any technical difficulties or any question that may be arising for us as interpreters, please use the chat.
Y aunque quizá no la vean, nuestra compañera Maru, que también forma parte del colectivo Antena Los Ángeles, está en el chat para hacer interpretación escrita en el momento. Entonces pueden usar el chat en cualquiera de los idiomas.
So that even though you may not see our other colleague, Maru, she's also online, and she will be doing written translation of whatever is put on the chat box.
Un par de detalles más. Las personas que entienden español van a escucharnos usando la E en vez de la A o la O al terminar algunas palabras.
So for folks who are listening to us in Spanish, you will be hearing us use the word E in exchange of the letter A or O.
Y eso es para resistir el binario de género y ser lo más inclusives posible.
And this is to actually resist on the binary of genders and be as inclusive as possible.
Antena Los Ángeles como colectivo trabajamos con muchos grupos comunitarios.
Antena Los Ángeles works with many groups in LA and community groups,
creando espacios bilingües y multilingües. Y entre esos grupos cuentan, por ejemplo, el Sindicato de Inquilinxs de Los Ángeles.
And so there's many groups that we're working together to create bilingual or multilingual spaces. And amongst those groups is included the Tenants Union in LA.
Entonces, sentimos muchísima solidaridad con la lucha de todos ustedes y para nosotras es un enorme placer y honor estar aquí con ustedes. Muchísimas gracias.
So it is great to be working with you today, and for us it's an honor to be here tonight with you.
Thank you both, Jen and Delia, for that. On your screen now, you will see some tips for how to use your phone. We ask that you use your phone for audio and your computer for video. As folks are coming onto the line, we do have an English dedicated line as well as a Spanish dedicated line. And so we want you to pick the appropriate line for yourself. If you have a phone, a headset as best as possible. And when you're not on the phone, if you would, please use *6 to mute yourself or mute your phone with the mute button. You can also mute yourself by clicking on the icon on the bottom of your screen, the little phone. You can hit that and mute and unmute yourself. For the call tonight, we're going to be using the chat box and those other, and it will pop up if you notice on the bottom of your screen. In that space, if you would, let us know that you're here by letting us know your name, as well as your city and an organization if you're repping one tonight. The chat box will be used as a way to also share questions. And if you are inspired throughout the presentations today and you have materials or resources that you would like to share, please feel free to also put that in the box as well. We also encourage folks to tweet about this episode at #RentThePower, #HomesForAll. And you can also use any of our group tweet lines if you would like. Next screen. So welcome. This is the Renter Nation series episode number 4. And we're going to hear stories from the front lines today. We've got Tenant Union of Washington State, as well as Inquilinxs Unidxs out of Chicago, as well as City Life Vida Urbana here out of Boston. We're going to then have some open answer question discussion points, and then we're going to have closing comments and also tell you what's coming up next. A little bit about Homes for All. We are a translocal campaign that is aimed to win housing as a human right. We have 3 different translocal tracks that we are organizing through committees. Our base building groups participate in a rent control / just cause eviction working group, as well as development without displacement, and our land, our home, our land, our land, our homes. OHA. I get that backward every time. Dealing with alternative ways to think about community control of land. The goals of our Renovation series are laid out here on the screen for you. They're to amplify local strategies, working to build power, to take back our cities and win a transition to community-controlled economy that works for all people and the planet. We also have a goal of building connection, relationships, and shared analysis between other housing justice movement workers, as well as other movement fronts. Another one of our goals is to deepen our collective capacity to build intersectional, multi-issue movements, to build strategy and the power that we need to win. And lastly, but not least, we are going to share powerful examples of our local and regional intersectional movement building, part of what we're going to be doing today. Tonight's panelists are with us. You're in for a treat. We have folks from the Tenant Union of Washington, as well as stories from what it looks like in Boston, the City Life Vida Urbana, as well as, it's in Minneapolis, our group, Inquilinxs Unidxs, is going to also share with us today. I'm now going to turn it over to Washington, Tenants United for Justice, and they're going to kick us off and get us started. Welcome.
My name is Hannah. I'm an organizer for the Tenants Union. Hello, everyone. My name is Monica Mendoza. I am also an organizer for the Tenants Union.
Hello, my name is Toya Thomas, and I was a former tenant at Renton Woods in Washington State.
All right, can we get the next slide? All right, so we're just going to give you a little bit of context before talking about like the specific work that we're going to today. Basically, the Seattle area is getting really damn expensive really fast. This is a graph that kind of shows like how badly the rent has been skyrocketing over time, and it's been leading to really massive displacement of communities, especially communities of color. When the County Housing Authority opened its lottery for Section 8 vouchers earlier this year, it was open for only 2 weeks, and almost 20,000 families signed up trying to get vouchers. They only have 3,500 spots, but you know, life here has become so unaffordable that people are, you know, really desperately in need of the vouchers, and there's not nearly enough capacity to get them to the folks that need them. Next slide. Thank you. So going off of that before we show the video. So basically, surrounding conversation around displacement and, the rent being, rent skyrocketing and, communities of color particularly are being affected. And as far as the city of Seattle goes and surrounding region, communities of color, particularly, the Black community, African American community, is getting pushed even further and further south, and south of the county, and away from the city. And so this video that we are going to, be showing is around a local rapper. His name is Drays, and he's going to talk about, a little the situation going on. So play the video, please.
I was born in the Central District, raised in the South End. I'm a homegrown kid, yep, 206 living. Used to play flyers up when I lived up on Union. Pushed it out to Augusta and eventually the Kenyans. Didn't have much, but thankful for all we was giving. It was all hood until weed and seed crept in. And the blocks went naked and gentrification came. Garfield, Franklin, robberies ain't even the same. Mark my words, it gonna be white boys all on the team. I don't reminisce when I drive through this hood, I feel pain. I ain't proud of these new developments, I feel shame. And I ain't trying to preach at these young brothers, just spit game. I guess Kent's the new South End, and the South End's the CD, and the CD is just a thing of the past. But I remember Sammy's Burgers, soul food down at Helen's, Holly Hill back when Duce was full of felons. Now the streets is naked, yeah they claim it, but nobody banks it. My man called me from the joint, I said this thing is changing. He said, young homie, what you mean? I said I can't explain it. These folks is moving us around just like an experiment. The city ain't the same, the South End ain't the same, and all around the world I see the same thing. Hurting people like cattle, man, I swear it's so strange. Picket signs don't change minds, they laughing at our pain. I heard Brooklyn ain't the same, and Harlem ain't the same, and all around the world I see the same thing. Black men in the White House, and ain't nothing changed. Playing checkers with our lives, but I'm seeing through the game. Okay, I get it, it's supposed to be the melting pot, but am I wrong for wanting to live around my own? Loitering in the park, brown bag sipping, slap box and dice game, fried chicken for Richlands. Drive by tooting my horn, what up pimpin'? This is the town in 95, good living. Sewer Park was poppin', Black Fest, Soul Fest. Rose from these hills, man them things was so fresh. Used to own our homes, now we're all renters. Got folks moving south like birds for the winter. They asked mama to sell her home, she said no. But then we had to shake when them property taxes rose. I know you say you ain't the ones in them white sheets, but these suits and ties are similar to me. Don't try to paint me as the black man who...
All right. So as you, for those of you who, could hear a little bit from the video, the Central District is a place in Seattle where, historically the African-American community has been, but because of the fact that rents are skyrocketing, communities of color are getting pushed even further and further south. So the city that you have circled in red is called Renton. And so, the Renton is an area, known as South King County, within King County, which is the county that Seattle is located in. And a fight that we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to pass it over to Hannah and Toya, is, where there's just been a lot of stuff going on. And a lot of communities of color are, in Renton now. So, next slide, please. All right, so I'm just going to set up really quickly what was going on in Renton. So, earlier we talked about the really big demand for Section 8 vouchers in this region, and there were 2 buildings in the Renton area where a lot of folks, especially a lot of families, were utilizing their Section 8 vouchers. And one day late last year, about 75 families got these letters and were told, we're not going to be renting to you anymore. We're not going to be taking vouchers anymore. And people were given very short timelines and were basically like at immediate risk of losing their housing and being out on the streets. These 2 buildings, just for reference, we're probably going to bring up the names later, were Renton Woods and then the Gramercy apartment. We wanted to include the mission of one of the property management companies that ran Renton Woods on here because it's so gross and greedy. And their mission was just straight up to get as much profit as possible for the apartment buildings. And, you know, they really didn't emphasize at all, like taking care of the community, being part of the Renton community, keeping people housed. They were all about like getting as much money as possible. So I'm going to turn it over to Toya, and we can go to the next slide, and she's going to walk us through kind of how the organizing went and what went down.
So, yeah, we were residents that lived there at Renton Woods, and we have all got notices on our doors to vacate. And amongst that, I began to search for a place, and we came together, we bonded. Most of us were women of color, African American, and we were bonding together to, you know, figure out what we can do since we were all in this together. And we met with the Tenants Union, who had had split numbers on our doors for us to contact them. Immediately, they came on board with us, and they taught us so much. You know, we had meetings together, you know, and they brung the radio to come talk to us, media, news, you know, nice nonprofit attorneys that were all involved in it. And so we really got together and took it to the courts, took it to the laws, and began to put it out there. And there was an ordinance written up less than a month and a half to ban the discrimination on, to ban it on discriminating against tenants for, you know, income discrimination, I'm sorry. And with that, we tried to take it statewide, but the ordinance did go. So we were able to stay there for a little longer. I chose to leave immediately because it was just a nightmare just to experience what had happened. Make the long story short, the housing authority, everybody really came together, involved in getting justice done and having it served. And so since then, you know, it didn't go through the House, I don't know, but we did fight, and we're still fighting. And so that's just a little short story of what actually happened. And that's, I need to say anything.
You can walk them to the next photo too if you want to go through them and kind of talk them through.
Okay.
You just tell them next. Yeah.
So right here, we were up here at the meeting with the Tenants Union and the Low Income Housing Alliance and a whole lot of the other coalitions that were building together, and we were being trained on how to form, you know, unity and come together and be, you know, just kind of do what they're doing, but like have the tenants and have a voice, you know. And we got a little educated on how these laws work, and, you know, and we did that. We were very intrigued in knowing that we did have rights. And so from here, we had took it from here, and then we learned how to go to the city, take it to the city hall, and go into the city council and, you know, tell what happened. And they were very sympathetic with our story. Each of us had children. We were really living in fear at this time, but it was bittersweet because we were able to bond, and it gave us a sense of comfort, you know, but at the same time, the fight was on. And believe it or not, you know, I chose to get up and leave because I was not comfortable. Once someone says they don't want you here, and most of us were women of color, Black or whatever, and Latino, Samoans, we were all women of color, and they didn't want us there. I didn't want to stay there anymore. So I got up, and I just happened to be blessed to get into a unit, but it's very hard to just up and get into a unit. That's a whole nother chapter. We're talking about the voucher process and how it works to pour it out and pour it in. When you find a unit, you got like probably 20 families fighting over that one unit to get into. So you're probably not even going to be, your voucher might not even be big enough to get into that. So anyway, we gotten the resources that we needed. And again, they gave us like, I think 30 more days. But once the ordinance passed, they couldn't do anything because then that was the temporary law that is now going into August. So they were still able to stay there up to August. And we don't know what's going to happen from that point. But we were able to do that. And so there was a change. That was a difference than just up and telling us, oh, you got to go. And you were left out on the street sleeping with our children in our cars. Because that was the motive of the agenda, I believe, of the landowner who bought the property. So, if I missed anything,
I think you're good. I had one thing really fast.
Malcolm, if you go to the last slide in our deck really fast. So, you know, just for a little bit more context, you know, what the buildings, it's actually the next one, what the buildings had been doing wasn't illegal when they were first doing it, but, you know, because of the work of these women, we ended up being able to get this law passed that now makes it illegal to discriminate against people because they're using Section 8 vouchers. One other thing to note is that, you know, the work in these buildings is, you know, most likely going to need to start again because, you know, since this law came out, the management companies have found this new strategy to affect marginalized people in that they are no longer accepting you know, promises from nonprofits to help folks pay their rent. They're saying that it's too inconvenient to go through the process of doing that, and so you know, they're just evicting people that way. And so there's, you know, there's another battle coming, as there always is, but you know, at the end, we are confident that, you know, we're going to prevail. Thanks all.
Thank you so much for that. I just wanted to remind folks in the chat box, if you would, if you have any questions, please put them there. We're trying to compile them. And when we open it up for question and answers, we'll try to use those questions as well. I'm now going to turn it over to Inquilinxs Unidxs from Minneapolis. Sorry, I said Chicago earlier. They're going to talk to us about the struggle for dignified housing and beyond that they're working on with their tenant organizing there. Take it away.
What's up, everybody? We're Inquilinxs Unidos por Justicia, or United Renters for Justice. My name is Roberto. I work with Inquilinxs Unidos.
Me llamo Mario Rodríguez. Soy voluntario de Inquilinos Unidos por Justicia.
And my name is Mario Rodriguez, and I'm a volunteer with Tenants United.
Hi, I'm Monique, and I am an organizer with Renters United for Justice.
So I want to just introduce by kind of giving a small context of what our struggle looks like. If you want to just turn the slide every minute, that'd be great. So basically, we noticed that fear, when organizing tenants, is one of our greatest tools. Fear actually is used to divide tenants. It's used to divide tenants racially, linguistically, to divide tenants against the landlord to not organize. But one thing that we notice is that when we unite fear, when we bring people together to talk about their fears, that's when we light the fire and we actually can get a lot of changes in buildings and push back and build power. A little context, we're organizing roughly around 100 different buildings against 2 or 3 different landlords. So these landlords have portfolios of 60, 70 buildings in which we're organizing in. And something that we noticed is that in the white buildings, the treatment's good. They get treatment well with the city, they're cool with the landlord, but in the buildings of color, where there's single women, immigrants, people with different abilities, we're seeing a lot of issues and a lot of tensions. And so something that I want to just highlight is the power relations in society, and we look at it in 2 ways. It's either rent as profit, and that goes into the landlord's pocket, or rent as a place to live. And anything in society, what we're seeing is that they always profit or always place emphasis on rent as profit. So whenever there's a problem with repair, whenever there's an issue with rent increases, the city turns a blind eye, and they actually are talking with the developers, talking with the landlords, and they're actually not giving any credit to rent as a place to live. And so what our struggle becomes is a struggle over profit margins. We steal profit margins from the landlords by organizing, and we put them back into the tenants' pockets by creating cultures of resistance and alternatives. So what I want to do now is turn it over to Mario to talk about the QT campaign. And mind you, we're going to make a little switch because he's going to be speaking in Spanish, so if the interpreters could make the switch now. Thank you.
Hablar en inglés, gracias. Like I told you, my name is Mario Rodriguez. And I was a tenant for 8 years. So we suffered a lot of abuses from the landlords. So if we would complain about having actually an apartment that was in bad conditions, instead of actually fixing and repairing it, they would basically threaten us with evicting us from our apartment. So we got together and we organized. So we got together with all the tenants that were suffering these conditions. And we decided to organize, to confront. So the first thing that we did, we wrote up a letter and gave him a list of all the different repairs that he had to do. The next step was that we made protests to him. Then we also invited the press. The landlord has actually been ignoring all of these, even the press and the media. So we took it to the court, and that's how we were able to win. So we were able to win for him to make the necessary repairs. So we actually also won for him not to be able to increase rent for 1 year. What we learned was that together and organized is the only way that we can actually win. And that's how we were able, and that's how we are able now to encourage for all tenants to actually come together, for all landlords who hears about United Tenants actually is very afraid of us. Because us, with the legal case, we were able to make the landlord to come and meet with the tenants at least once a month and make repairs that we needed. And we were only asking for our rights. And that's how Inquilinos Unidos United Tenants was able to win our landlord that rents the apartments to us. So we will take anyone on, and we will be able to be victorious on anyone. So I'll take back the mic to my colleague.
Okay. Hi, again, my name is Monique. I've been organizing with Renters United for Justice, and I consider myself an apartment shop survivor. That were the one of the units I was living in. That's the owner's name of the company. This would be like the first time since raising 3 kids as a single mom, I would be living on my own. Upon contacting Apartment Shop, I set up an appointment to look at several different units at different locations. Upon picking the one that I felt like was right for me, they told me I only had to give them $100 down to hold it for a month. Like, that was perfect, considering I had to pay a deposit, the first month's rent, and still maintain the place I was living at the time. I wouldn't have asked for 30 days, so them offering that just made it that much better. It was the perfect size, 1 bedroom, and big enough for my sons to visit and not feel like they were crowding me. They didn't live in apartments growing up into adults, so it was great for them to still feel at home when visiting me. And knowing that the building was secure, having 3 sons, that was important to them. You know that saying, it just might be too good to be true? It was. Upon moving in, I figured out that the building was not secure. Anyone could get in the building because the security door was broken. From there, it seemed like everything went downhill. In the first 2 weeks, the unit would start to unravel slowly. There was water leaking in my bedroom closet that I didn't detect right away because it was carpeted. Then came the mold in the closet. Upon contacting the rental office about the security door and the buzzer not working, the wet carpet in my closet and the mold, after patiently waiting for 2 weeks, nothing had still been done. Not only had nothing been done with these issues, other issues had already began. I decided to write a letter and take it into the rental office, having them sign my copy and giving them a copy of their own. Still, nothing would be done. As an asthmatic, I am extremely affected by mold. My son being concerned that the door wasn't secure and that my health hadn't been good since living there, he insisted on staying for a little bit to make sure I was okay. Also during this time, Renters United for Justice contacted me about the owner, informing me there was a lot of abuse to tenants in these apartment shop units. That was a blessing. I began organizing with them and started taking steps to hold the owner accountable for these units. It actually took for me to have a local news station come into my apartment and do an interview and show how bad things were in my apartment before Apartment Shop would come out and start to begin repairs. Once they felt like the momentum had maybe died down a little bit, the repairs stopped and things got worse. I would have my kitchen completely flood to the point that I had to use bed sheets and blankets to soak up the water. And they came out and didn't feel like they should replace anything. They're just wiping up the water. Okay. So anyway, things kind of went back and forth between me and the owner. We ended up going to court. With the videotape footage and the pictures that I got, I feel like a little bit of justice was done. He had to grant me free rent for 6 months to be able to find another place to live. Unfortunately, that's another battle because the housing is so bad to get into here. It's difficult if you aren't making a lot of money and to get into a good neighborhood. With that, I'm going to pass it back over to Roberto.
So we just want to finish up with kind of giving a few lessons learned in our struggle. One, we noticed that organizing against repairs is important, but it's a lot harder, and we see that more people get invigorated in the movement when we organize around rent increases. We just yesterday got a letter from a landlord in which we stopped a rent increase of $600, and we stopped it flat out. We got a complete freeze, and the letter is quite fantastic, so I can send it to everybody. The second thing is when we negotiate with landlords, we're not buddy-buddy with them. We come in with our demands, and what's really important is that the tenants lead those meetings, because the landlords are always going to try to flip the reality if you're an organizer or a directly affected tenant. The third thing is when you organize, landlords are going to sell. They've sold 14 buildings where our resistance is the strongest. So pay attention to that. Now, last thing is protesting works, press works, visits to the office work. These are the most amazing things that we can do to bring people together to fight back and create alternatives to justice. So I want to move over to Mario to give his lesson and then finish with Monique on her lesson.
Ahora sí. The lesson for a renter is that we need to unite and we need to fight together. Particularly as renters, we can fight together.
Okay, le paso la palabra.
The lesson that I learned was working with Renters United for Justice and getting into leadership school. People coming together and organizing to seek justice is a much bigger, you get a much bigger response than when taking these things on individually. There's no way I would have took this landlord on alone and figured out the things that I would have got done. So my lesson, I would have to say, is organize, unite, work together, speak up, so that you know you're not the only one that's dealing with these issues. And even if it's not directly a person that you're speaking with, they might know somebody that needs this kind of help in organizing.
Thank you, Inquilinxs Unidos. Next up, we have City Life Vida Urbana from Boston.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So I just want to say how proud and honored I am to be sharing the screen and this webinar with these powerful tenant organizers. My name is Lisa Owens, and I'm the Executive Director of City Life Vida Urbana in Boston. We are a housing justice organizing group, and we're committed to fighting for racial, social, economic justice, and gender equality. And we've been fighting for community control of land and housing for the last 44 years. So there are about 16 of us in this room, and we're all really excited to be part of this larger movement with you all. So in a minute, you're going to hear from 4 of our organizers who will be super brief, and they're each going to give you a short snapshot of our anti-displacement tenant organizing. Each of our campaigns are built on our organizing method, which we call the sword, the shield, and the offer. The sword is direct action and public protest. The shield is creative legal defense, which is coordinated with our organizing. And the offer is social control of land and housing. And often the culmination of our organizing is that we actually take control of the buildings that our tenants are organizing. We organize tenants across the city who have the same landlord to form tenant unions and bargain collectively. In that way, tenant unions are able to win significant demands, which range from limiting rental increases to buying buildings. And each week, we host tenant meetings that bring over 100 residents, lawyers, and allies together to build community and to create strategy. And so now I'm really excited to bring up Andres, who is our North Side organizer. Right, Andres.
All right, hi everybody. My name is Andres del Castillo. I'm the lead organizer for City Life Vida Urbana at our site Northside. That's a site that encompasses one neighborhood of Boston, East Boston, as well as 4 cities. Our meetings are also mass meeting style, so we do collective casework. Our meetings are typically done in a fashion where we speak in Spanish, just because it's whoever's the most in the crowd. It tends to be mostly Spanish-speaking immigrant community. I grew up in East Boston, and I was brought to the movement through doing immigrant rights work. One of many things, but immigrant rights work. And then I, found City Life East Boston is the neighborhood I've grown up in. And right now we've seen most of our coastal area is Massport property, who's, sold most of that to private developers, which has like made it the area like super bougie. And now everybody in the bougie place wants to move in. So developers are buying up these, these buildings and investing, either wanting to do condo conversions or just evicting entire buildings. That picture you see there includes some of the families from a building that actually collapsed. The rear wall collapsed as a developer had purchased. The family had called ISD many times. We've had some great successes in getting folks organized through the collective casework model and through building associations. We've won 4-year contracts in 2 cases, one of which was scattered site, so not everybody actually lived in the same space. And also we won another one in a 3-unit building that was renewable, and it was renewable upon the tenants expressing wanting out from the contract. So that was great. And like I said, in this neighborhood, one of the biggest lessons is that there is a very solid link between immigrant rights and the housing rights in the housing rights movement, especially given the climate that we're in and the fear folks have with engaging in the court process.
How you doing? My name is Antonio Ennis. I'm a community organizer here at City Life Vida Urbana, and I came to City Life as a homeowner in foreclosure seeking help. I used the shield, the offer, and the power of my music to beat back the bank attack and win my home back. One of our biggest victories in 2016 was properties on Waldeck and Orlando streets that we dubbed Orlando. I have Chuck standing alongside with me, who's one of the leaders of the Tenant Association over there. We won a victory over one of the city's most notorious slumlords. 59 units could have easily fell into the hands of greedy investors who would have evicted all the tenants and converted them for condo sales. But the resistance of the streets, the courts, and the help of a nonprofit organization aided in making this our signature victory within the last year. This past Sunday, the 21st, we had a huge rally at Victory Road, where we have a huge group of emerging tenants who have been galvanized by City Life's fighting method. They came out in full support of each other to fight back exorbitant rent increases. With the help of the movement, they're poised now for a big victory against Wallace Property Management. We had a turnout of about 60 people. The day before that, Saturday, on the 20th, we had a huge rally for Marie Perpignan. We had a rally and a march at her property. She's one of our longstanding members. She's one of our longstanding members, and she's been faced with rent increases and now imminent eviction, possibly. We rallied at her home and then marched to the landlord's home to demand that he work out an affordable rent and forego eviction proceedings. We had about 50 people turn out for that. We also work with an organization called COHIF, which is the Coalition for Occupied Homes in Foreclosure, whose goal is to purchase occupied homes in foreclosure, put them on a community land trust, stabilize communities with affordable rents at 30% of the renter's income.
And just a reminder to City Life folks, amazing, just to speak slowly so the interpretation can catch all of your powerful words.
Okay. Don't worry. Yeah, it's better to slow rather than to keep time.
Hi guys, I'm Alex Ponte Capellan. I'm a community organizer here in the Washington Street corridor area, or JP Rocks area. I actually grew up in the neighborhood as a kid, used to hang out here a lot. back when you can get an IC for like 25 cents on the corner. I saw the high-low supermarket, which was an affordable supermarket for people, turn into a Whole Foods. And I was just like, oh, this is... So yeah, I've seen the change of the community, and I started organizing, and that's how I came into contact with City Life. Now I'm working here. So what we're seeing in this area is large-scale luxury development. Our mayor has this goal of building 53,000 units by 2030. So literally, luxury condominiums are popping up everywhere in Boston, especially in this area. So what's happening is, of course, as you guys know, rents are skyrocketing. Corporations are coming in, buying homes from people, and raising the rents on everybody in the home, trying to get people evicted so they can then charge much higher rents. In some cases, even 100 times more of the original rents. So what we're doing to combat that is, one, we're forming tenant associations to get collective bargaining agreements. This is a picture of one of the families at 26 School Street. One of the first tenant associations we created, or not we, but they created, and we helped. And it started over 2 years ago. And if they didn't start fighting, they would have been out 2 years ago. And 2 years, and today we're still fighting. So that's one of the major takeaways we have is just fighting, you're already winning in some way. So one way is doing that, forming tenant associations. Another way is through protests and rallies. This was one of the rallies we had starting in front of their house. We marched all the way down Washington Street to another proposed, the same landlord has a proposed building they want to build there. And we marched all the way down there. And yeah, these protests really build community unity and public pressure against the landlord. So that's another way we want to build community, is through rallies and protests. Because the community that what happens to them happens to us as a whole. So fighting for them is fighting for themselves as well. Another thing that we're fighting for is being more involved in the planning process. So there's a JP Rocks plan, master plan, and this plan is like basically a development plan for the little section of the neighborhood. So the city agency has these planning meetings where the community comes in and they're supposed to influence the plan. But what it really is their chance to say, hey, we showed the plan to you guys and we're gonna just keep rolling through it. But we didn't let that happen. Every single one of their meetings, we came with signs, we disrupted, we had chants, we had a little, like a play almost with our signs. And we were able, through that way, get the plan's affordability to increase. We got up to 36% affordability. And that would have never happened if we just stayed quiet and let their meetings go as planned. So that was another takeaway, getting involved in the planning process and not letting just things roll by you. And yeah, that's it. Ronald Remy.
I can see that my center. Okay, good. Hi, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ronald Remy. I come to City Life. I was losing my house. I was afraid. I was always sad and always depressed, the whole 9 yards. And I learned through City Life that I do have rights, which I didn't know at the time. And then after I learned that, I did keep it to myself. I wanted to help others also with the struggle. I wanted to help build communities. I began to have dreams of what I can do, how I could change things around. Don't leave things the way you find them. And through it all, I become an organizer. I'm organizing mostly against APM. APM is Advanced Property Management. They're vicious. They will raise rent outrageously to 500 and up. These folks can afford it. Folks who are in Section 8, folks who are disabled or elderly, you know, it's kind of hard. So through our actions, we're able to tell folks they have rights. They can stay, they can negotiate deals through our Tenants Association with them. So far, we haven't got good victories like we wanted to, but they don't sell, they don't evict anybody. And it's something that you would call a stalemate. They don't evict anybody, and we don't even have new leases or stuff like that. But so far, everything is going good. We're hoping we keep the fight, and when we fight, we really win. We believe that, and we're gonna keep on fighting. That's how we do.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And thank you to all of our presenters today. I want to remind folks that in the chat box, you can give your questions there. If you have one specific for an organization, we'll be able to call them back up to come and answer that. I want to throw out a general question to folks, and any of our panel participants can answer. When thinking about tenant unions, there are many different ways that you can exert power, either through building it up with the people in the building or using the collective power of multiple tenant unions to affect policy change. What are some of the tools or strategies that you've been able to use to bring folks who are dealing with the eviction from concentrating on their individual fight to affecting policy change throughout the city? Anyone want to take a stab at the question? The question is, how do you move or use your tenant power from fighting the individual fight to affecting citywide policy or change?
So this is Inquilinxs from Minneapolis. Something that's really evident to us is we had a very, very intense base focus. And so when we're building up tenants, we're contacting tenants consistently, we're knocking in buildings. And as we do that, we start to put the issues out into kind of the public realm. And as we start getting small wins in each building over the 100 buildings that we're in, it becomes a huge issue. And so this most recent rent increase that we stopped, now it's an election cycle. People are coming to us to ask what policy we want to have changed. But that policy only came first by organizing the base, organizing groups of renters who are coming together and discussing their issues so that we could figure out what are the best things for our geography and our movement.
All right, thank you. I have a question here that says, what are some obstacles that you can come into when approaching tenants who are oftentimes in a crisis mode? How do you overcome some of those obstacles? I'm going to call on City Life, someone from City Life.
So
Tell us
like a clear, linear answer to that. But oftentimes in Northside, what is the experience is that you kind of have to embrace the person's full complexity of issues and try to like take off pressure from wherever they may be feeling pressure. Oftentimes what we see is folks that either undocumented or have some other like immigration status related issue, either families in detention or things of that nature. And so trying to put in systems of support that can kind of give some relief so that they can focus on the other immediate things that are going on, like their housing situation. So just using immigration as an example, it's about kind of leaning on your networks if you have resources such as legal resources or other community resources that do that type of work, and kind of making that person's experience through the movement holistic and intersectional, and not necessarily just like, oh, okay, well, that's not part of the work we do, or that's not our area of expertise. But instead of saying no, saying like, this is an opportunity to educate yourself as an organizer and to educate the community as to how we respond to it and how our community should be getting ready to respond to these things if they're going to be happening more and more.
Sorry, what I said was, in my experience, I walked around the building and got familiar with the other mothers because we didn't know each other from a can of paint. But when I could not get any sleep when I have gotten that letter on my door, and it affected my daughter, her education. It was affecting my children to see me up every night looking. So what I did to get with these brothers that I did not know, I just talked to them, and we formed a big group all throughout the whole complex. Not only that complex, the complex that it happened in, and the one next over, which was the Gramercy. And with the Tenants Union involved, we got together with them, and they made us familiar with what resources we had, what rights we had, and we began to fight. And we took it to the courts, took it to the city, and it just blew up. Like, I know the elections was going on with our time, but it really did blow up, and we put it out there what Renton Woods was doing to us, and the reviews began to change, even online. People saw what they were doing to us, and the people in the community were affected by it. So I would just say the best thing to do would really do what all of you've been doing, really get familiar with the rest of the tenants, that even if they're not supposedly on a affordable housing thing, because even in my case, there were some people that was not on Section 8, but because they were Black, they were jacking their rent up to like $500, $600, and if they didn't come with that money, they had to leave. So this was just an outrage, and I mean, it was uglier than what I'm even speaking. And but like I said, it's good to get familiar with them and get familiar with the organizations that deal with the tenant laws and all that in your communities, and just unify, build, and organize, and that's how it works. And bring the media, bring the news and the radio, and they'll do something. Believe that.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other responses or thoughts on obstacles and overcoming them? I had a question here that asked, and you brought it up just in your last response there, not everybody in the building is experiencing the same type of discrimination or the same type of issues and problems when it comes to organizing a tenant union. And so how do you deal with internal conflicts within the residents in order to arrive at a shared platform or shared fight together? How do you deal with the conflicts internally?
So for us, in Inquilinxs Unidos here, what was pretty fascinating is that we need to get people to confront their own reality. And so what happens a lot of times is that maybe some of the white tenants were having a lot better conditions in their buildings than the tenants of color. And so when they came to meetings, overwhelming of tenants of color that were going through some pretty serious stuff, people were able to see their reality and become politicized through it and learn how to work together. And I think the most important thing to starting our tenants union was, as long as you can overcome fear to get people to come together and discuss their pain, once you go that stop, you win. Because people start coming together and the steps will start rolling from there.
Okay. Thank you. I want to remind participants on the call that you are more than welcome to use the chat box to put a question in there, or you can unmute yourself by pushing *6 so that you can talk directly to us and join the conversation. Several of you talked about how the media picked up on the fact that you were organizing and building power through your tenant unions. Can you share with us some pros and some cons to the media use? Because not all times are the media our friends. And so can any of you all give examples of how you were able to effectively use the media to help move your issue?
Hey, this is Hannah from the Tenants Union in Washington. So Darnell, to kind of go off of what you're saying, I think that oftentimes, you know, when you have, you know, like what was going on in Renton was a situation where there were all these families that were going to be displaced, and any like decent human being would understand that that's a messed up thing and something we should be fighting against and we shouldn't ever be condoning. But it is interesting because sometimes when you have conversations with reporters, especially people from more like mainstream outlets, once you start pushing on like, well, maybe we need, you know, rent control to prevent things like happening, or like maybe we need to like challenge some of these other societal structures and talk about like structural racism, then it starts getting a little bit like, oh, wait, hold on, that's like, you know, that's too far. And oh, sorry, I'm going too fast. And so I think, you know, there's the issue of sometimes figuring out like what outlet is appropriate for like what story. And I think one of the roles of an organizer is teasing out like which reporters, you know, are going to be more receptive to more kind of like radical mindsets than others. Because there are folks that might be in more like mainstream outlets, but that will be willing to kind of like listen to, you know, kind of listen to reasoning that might be beyond what, you know, might be kind of considered mainstream. I know there's this big question in general about what role does an organizer have, how to use an organizer, make sure you're never like speaking over the needs of tenants. I think one appropriate role for an organizer is you know, trying to figure out which media outlets are good for different things. Hello, this is Monica. So just adding on to that, one thing I've observed is that, you know, with your organization and your group, if you release press releases and, you know, you just always are very diligent and, you know, following up with media, making sure that there is a lot of coverage and, you know, just really making sure that you're doing that to be a priority, it's always going to be, you know, it's going to make a stronger case for your all. So it's just a matter of being on top of it, really.
And you really have to have that spokesperson that is really, like she said, really militant and really radical, like me, myself. We brought it on, and it you know, success happens when you open your mouth and when you come with a personality with it.
That's right. That's good.
Yeah.
I had a question. Oh, go ahead, Alex. Alex, were you going to respond to that? I thought you did it.
So yeah, here at City Life, we usually, you know, we do social media and we do press advisories and we always try to get some media at one of our rallies or stuff like that. But one thing I wanted to get across before we went to the next question is a lot of times in an interview, they'll ask you questions and kind of like deviate from what you wanted to say. And my thing is just say what you want to say anyways. Like go with certain points that you want to say and just say those, and that's it. Like they're gonna have to use what you said, and they won't be able to edit what you said or cut out things you said if you just say what you wanted to say, and just stick to the point, and usually that works.
Thank you. We had a question that came through. Oh, you want to go ahead?
So we were just discussing something real quick in the group here, and it's the media will never tell our stories how we want it. But what the media does is it pressures the landlord. It's just a tool to pressure the landlord. We're always going to be angry by the way they paint us because they won't understand the complexities of our movement. But we use them to get wins for tenants in that way, and then we write about ourselves how we want to write about ourselves and publish it that way.
All right. Thank you. We had a question that came in that was on my tongue tonight. In thinking about homes for all, we have a large population in the U.S. and around the world in which a home doesn't really exist because they are in a situation where they are homeless. Have any of your tenant organizing or tenant union organizing lent itself or helped or been a part of organizing homeless communities? Anybody want to go? If you're talking, we can't hear you.
Hey, this is Hannah again. I'm going to talk slowly this time. I'm really sorry for being so fast. You know, this isn't necessarily a positive answer, but what I want to say is that there's a need for a lot of concerted organizing with unhoused folks in Seattle specifically. There's been a lot of discussion about creating a Bill of Rights for people who are unhoused, kind of similar to like a set of landlord-tenant law. Right now, we have a lot of folks living in both like city authorized and kind of informal encampment communities, and there are definitely some abuses going on in those communities and some power structures that are concerning, and those folks don't really have any rights to lean on. There are some groups that are on their own doing organizing there, and we have kind of considered collaborating with them on figuring out what needs are most important and kind of how to advocate for those, but nothing officially yet.
Okay. Thank you.
And Darnell, this is Tony with Right to the City. I can share a few other examples that are happening in many of our partners across the country that are actually organizing directly folks who don't have a home. A good example is Picture the Homeless in New York. Very powerful organization of folks who are homeless, many of whom live on the street. They are demanding and fighting for and winning control of vacant properties and putting them on community land trusts that are collectively owned by those who are on the land, and then building their community around it. So that's one thing that's happened. I think the other reality is, with all the displacement, all the folks who have been displaced from their community or building, they would be homeless if it wasn't for the fight to stop the displacement. So in that way, I think there's a lot of prevention of homelessness too. But this fight definitely gets into the need to tie in our fight for renters' rights, for also our right for, like City Life was saying, for social control over land and housing overall.
Thank you for that, Tony. All right, we've got time here for another question. It looks like in one of the earlier presentations, someone had mentioned that the landlord simply sold the building. In that situation, how have you responded to that tactic?
Okay. So hi everybody. So we actually helped to create an organization that is able to put pressure on the city to create funding to subsidize the buying of buildings, and then subsequently put these buildings onto community land trusts. So so our method is the sword, the shield, and the offer. So the sword is fighting not just for tenants to be able to stay, in their units for 1 year, 2 years, or 4 years, but actually the demand often is, if you are not able to rent, to provide housing that's affordable and safe and quality for our neighborhood, then sell it to the people, and we will control our housing ourselves, and we will maintain our housing as permanently affordable forever. And so that's an organizing demand. It's a movement demand.
Thank you for that. Minneapolis, did you all have a response to that?
Tengo que cambiar de idioma.
All right.
Sorry. Yeah, yes.
Go ahead.
We are facing that situation right now. 14 buildings were sold, and that we were. Can you, oye, Mario, ¿puedes hablar un poco más fuerte? Porque es muy difícil escucharte. Sorry, I was just asking him to speak more loudly into the phone. QT Property is a company that has sold 14 buildings, and we fought against this.
Para que sepa el dueño de eso.
We're not organizing. Organizing so that the owner of those buildings, those apartments, so that we will have those apartments. How would I say? We're united in a fight not to experience the same problems that we've had before. That the new owner knows that we are working together as an organized group. We know what our rights are. And we know that the buildings are experiencing bad conditions. And we want the owners to know that we know that. That's all.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to let each group give one little final statement. If you were to speaking to someone we may have folks on the call who currently aren't a part of an organization, who are just facing an issue with their rent and evictions in their homeland. What would be your suggestion or advice to starting a new tenant organization and how to get started?
a big thing I would say is communicating with people in your community, in your neighborhood, in your buildings, and making sure that you are staying aware of what is actually going on. Only through communicating will you be able to unite to get this going, to get things taken care of as a whole instead of an individual.
And then I just want to read a statement that came out from a landlord that we got yesterday. It's one of the biggest developers in Minneapolis. We stopped a displacement of around 15 different apartments. And he said this: "We're sorry. We've let our relationship as a landlord and tenant and as people get off the wrong foot, and we're sorry. This is how we're going to set things right. Last month, we sent you a notice of our plans to increase rents at 25th Avenue South. Effective immediately, those plans have been canceled and your current monthly rent will remain the same. While we have no plans to change your rent, any future changes will be communicated to you personally, one-on-one, and in a manner that is respectful and gives you plenty of time to consider your alternatives." We won that campaign in 4 weeks. So I just wanted to end with that.
All right. Thank you. Any other closing words from our other presenters?
I would just suggest, if the person is totally unfamiliar, like I was, to pick up a phone and see what their tenants' resources are in that community or that neighborhood or that jurisdiction or whatever, and get very familiar with those and talk to those people and see if they can guide them and direct them to the right tools to fight back.
All right. Thank you. We often say when we fight, we win.
So I guess yeah, can you hear me? So I guess I would say there's a whole movement, there's a whole group of people in the Homes for All network. So if a group really wants to start a tenant union, I would say connect with the many groups around the country. Find a group that's close to you that's been doing this and get support, because you're in it for the long haul. So those would be my closing words.
All right. Thank you. And thank you to all of our groups who helped put this program together today. We have some information on the screen there about the Tenant Union Working Group that's going to have an event, I believe, on June 23rd. And for more information, you can email Roberto at the bottom there. If you have not already joined Homes for All, we invite you to sign the pledge and join the Tenant Union Working Group. You can visit us at homesforall.org/pledge.
And Darnell, it may be good if Roberto can just share a little bit about what people can expect on their next monthly call and how to plug in.
Can everybody hear me?
We can now, yes.
Yep. So basically, it's a group to discover ourselves, see what we're doing, reflect as other groups around the country see what they're doing, and offer support. And so come with any question, come with any concern, any thoughts, and we'll be there to hash it out together. We don't have the answers, but we have experiences that we can share and build with each other.
Thank you. That's on June 23rd at 11 a.m. Eastern. In our renter series, we are continuing on with our next Renter Nation series. It's going to be our national town hall on the state of gentrification. It's going to be on June 15th, again at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time. The registration is down there on the page there at Gentrification Town Hall. It's a bit.ly. Feel free to share that. We will have some great presenters on that call, updating us on where we are as a nation and thinking about how we are building power to secure a home for all. This call was recorded, and we want to let folks know that we will put this out on our website, where you can also check out some of our other webinars in case you missed them as well. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you real soon.
Y nos dará mucho gusto verlos a todos muy pronto.
Tenant power, baby.
Thank you, interpreters.
And thank you to our interpreter team. Yes.
Gracias.
Bye-bye, folks.